Hello and welcome back to another video. I'm Charlie and today I will be doing a review and demo on the iMac G4. iMac G4 was released in 2002 and later discontinued in 2004. It's a computer that replaced the wildly successful and popular iMac G3. Although these computers were only a generation apart, they are completely different. However, despite the iMac G4's success, it was later replaced a mere 2 years later by the more wildly successful iMac G5 systems. Take a look at these computers side by side. You can sort of see the resemblance with the arm carrying the screen sort of thing. However, the slab design of the G5 is a lot more popular than the table lamp or sunflower design of the G4, which is why we still use the same design as we do today. Alright, so when Steve Jobs came back to Apple in 1997, when it was near bankruptcy, they released the iMac G3. It was completely different compared to all other computers on the market. For example, the translucent plastic, different colors that came out later on, and it was pretty cool. However, this video isn't about the iMac G3, so I'll save that history for later. So Apple decided to continue on this trend of oddly yet ingenious designs and moved on to the iMac G4. They knew that these types of designs would be keeping their products afloat, and this was a really good selling point for them, so that's what they did. It was originally designed by Johnny Ive, and it was revolutionary, and an LCD display which was very new at the time, and also a bit pricey, but it was still a huge success. Had an adjustable stand for the screen for easy viewing angles, and they were able to fit the whole computer in a small, attractive semicircle compartment at the bottom. At the 2002 Apple keynote, Steve explained why they had to make such drastic design changes rather than just cutting off the rear of an iMac.
We could have taken our iMac and taken a hacksaw to it, just chopped off the back. So we're going to put a flat display on the front. Who needs the back? There it is, the new iMac, ladies and gentlemen. But there are some problems with this. There are some fatal flaws in this approach. With the flat screen in the front, you notice it's not very flat anymore, is it? Because we've glommed the back on with all the rest of the stuff. There's nothing flat about this computer. But the other problems go deeper. We have to put the logic board parallel to the display in back of it, which means the connectors come out on the side, making the worst kind of cable mess right in front of your eyes. And even worse, we have to turn the drives on the side. And in particular with the optical drives, they can't run at full speed on the side. We have to slow them way down. The performance goes way down when you turn them on their sides. And you could never fit a super drive in here. So this approach is far less than great, and we rejected it. And then we had our big idea. And the big idea was that rather than glom these things all together and ruin them all, a lower performance computer and a flat screen that isn't flat anymore, why don't we let each element be true to itself? If the screen is flat, let it be flat. If the computer wants to be horizontal, let it be horizontal.
Apple's idea of letting all the components being true to themselves was a really good idea, which was later what came to the iMac G4's design. It was super revolutionary, it let all the components be true to itself, and it worked out pretty great if you ask me. Because the iMac G4 was of the higher end and costed around $1,400, Apple has to release a cheaper desktop model aside it to go with like the education market and just other people who didn't have enough money. The iMac G3 was discontinued in the middle of the iMac G4's lifespan. However, it was later replaced by the iMac. Now, I do not have an iMac, but if I did, I'd definitely demonstrate it. This video gets 10 likes, I'll buy an iMac. Specs for the iMac G4 vary. Because it was released for 2 years, there were quite a few models made. There was a 700 megahertz to a 1.5 gigahertz model. There was also 15-inch models to 17-inch models to 20-inch models, which are quite rare, the 20-inch models, and go for like $400 on eBay. The one I have here is a 17-inch from around 2003, I believe, and this is running it has a 1 gigahertz, and this is the 1 gigahertz system, which is quite unfortunate for a few reasons, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. Now, even though the iMac G4 was relatively more modern and futuristic compared to the iMac G3, it was still lacking a couple of older, more important features that a lot of people suffered from. One of these problems was the carrying handle. Now, the iMac G3 had a carrying handle, which made it really easy to carry around. However, the iMac G4 did not have a carrying handle, therefore making it a bit harder to grip onto and carry around places. Now, obviously, a scenario like this is far too unrealistic. I mean, the iMac G4 was only like 20 pounds compared to the monstrous 40 of the iMac G3. Now, another problem with the iMac G4 was the CD drive. The iMac G4 used a tray-loading CD drive, which was far more old-fashioned than the slot-loading drive in the iMac G3. However, in terms of long-term reliability, the iMac G3 definitely struggles there, since the drives are not known to last for very long, and sometimes stop working completely. Now, one of the biggest problems of the iMac G4, in my opinion, is for it to be able to natively run macOS 9. Now, if you don't know, the iMac G3 can run macOS 9 natively, and there are some older iMac G4 models that could also run macOS 9 natively as well. However, this is the 1 GHz model, and there's also another 1.25 GHz model above this. However, these two models cannot run macOS 9, and these models were the more popular ones that were released later, so this was a huge problem for a lot of businesses, schools, and even home users, because they'd have to deal with switching to OS X applications, meaning that all their macOS 9 applications would be rendered useless. Some of you might be saying, oh, but you could just run classic mode. Well, guess what? Classic mode is a huge pain in the ass to try and install on this thing. You need all these special disks, takes forever, super confusing, and I can't stand it. It's just so much easier to run it natively than to do classic mode. Because mine isn't an 800 MHz or 700 MHz model, I had to ask a friend to demonstrate his 800 MHz model running macOS 9. As you can see, it's running 9.2, and it runs surprisingly well apparently, and it looks pretty good too. So if you're going to buy an iMac G3 and you're not sure which one to buy, I definitely recommend the 800 MHz model. Finally, to top it all off, what the hell is this? It won't open all the way because the keyboard's too tall, or maybe the disk drive's too low. I don't know. This I just found this just now, and this is probably the stupidest design I've ever seen in my entire life. However, despite these flaws, I still think that the iMac G4 is a very nice, capable, and futuristic machine that definitely changed history. The iMac G4 did have some advantages over the iMac G3. For one, it was a lot faster with certain models, it was smaller, mostly cheaper to produce, and it was just a lot more energy efficient because of the lack of a CRT. Honestly, if you were upgrading, this would be a pretty major upgrade from the iMac G3 because of all the new features you'd be getting and all of the other more improved features and capabilities that the iMac G4 has compared to the G3. That'll be it for this iMac G4 documentary. If you did enjoy, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. Consider subscribing if you're interested in this kind of content, as I will be uploading some more of it in the future. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate your support, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.